the live sessions. So on that note, if you don't want your face held for prosperity, please, mute your mics and turn your camera off, because this will be recorded. I think that is it from a housekeeping perspective. And again, I'll just segue into the CIOB elements. So my name's Lee Renshaw. I am a Chartered Construction Manager and I am Chair of the CIOB Manchester Hub. So as an institute, the CIOB, we're a very large institution, 50,000 strong members. We're a global organisation, and our primary objectives is to raise the industry, become modern professionalisms, be the go-to institute for construction management across the globe. And we've got 3 pillars that we try to adhere to: skills gap, environmental sustainability, and quality and safety. So these series, really, for me, quite passionate in the EDI space, it's about gathering and bringing the best skills into our sector, retaining that, and we will get better sustainability outcomes and quality and safety throughout. So that's a little bit about the CIOB. And I'll hand over to Chris, my colleague in the ISPE, to give a bit of oversight about his industry.
Thanks, Lee. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Yeah, just a bit about myself first and why, and then I'll go into the ISPE. So I work for AstraZeneca in the global engineering department. I lead the commissioning and qualification across a number of projects. Got involved with the ISPE a number of years ago. I'm the current UK Vice Chair, Regional Chair of the Northwest Committee, and Chair of a commissioning and qualification technical community that we've just set up, so quite heavily involved. So with all that on my plate, I guess you're wondering, why did I get involved in this series? I do tend to overcommit. Well, I guess 3 things I've wrote down this morning. First thing, I was massively energized by Lee. He's a fantastic ambassador in this space, and more than happy to kind of share the journey that he's on personally. We used to sit next to each other at AZ, so he's just infectious with his energy. So that's the main driver, really. I do have my own personal journey with my daughter. My daughter's going through something similar. So again, any opportunity to learn and help myself as a parent in terms of making sure I say the right thing and behave in the right way, and kind of understand what she's going through, is only going to help our relationship. And thirdly, it's all about seizing the day, really. Lee's presented the opportunity to collaborate with the CIOB. I must confess I didn't know that much about the CIOB before Lee offered this collaboration opportunity. I think with ISPE, we're fantastic, in terms of technical steer and industry best practice. In terms of the kind of the people and the behavioural aspects, certainly within the sort of neurodiversity space, we're not perhaps doing as much as we should. So Lee's presented this opportunity, and it's a fantastic platform again for us to collaborate together and get some wider awareness around this topic. So I'm sure there's a few of you on the call that don't even know what ISPE is. So what it stands for is the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering. Okay, so we are a global non-profit organisation headquartered in the US, but we do have a large global reach spanning, I think it's about 130 countries now. Each country has is what's classed as an affiliate, and then there's regional affiliates within each country. We focus on 3 pillars: so manufacturing innovation, member and workforce development, and making sure our sort of technical communities are up to date with the latest regulatory and industry guidance. We are not just engineers. I, for one, am not an engineer. I am a biochemist by trade, and as you can see in the bottom left, we have a full span from scientists, architects, pharmacists, IT, quality assurance professionals, the whole span of disciplines required in the kind of pharmaceutical operation. In terms of what our vision is, well, we want to shape the future of pharmaceuticals. We do that again by having a number of communities of practices which span across all disciplines of the pharmaceutical manufacturing space. And our mission is connection, making sure we connect pharmaceutical knowledge to everybody that needs that. And again, we do that via various COPs, issuance of a number of technical guidance documents, loads of conferences and awards dinners, and very similar to CIOB and how we operate. You've got a couple of pictures on the slide there. One is our Women in Pharma community, is the left-hand side, which I think the lady on the call, Sarah Matson. Sarah's also helped get this series up and running with B. Done a great job for us, and Sarah's been pushing the UK board for a while now in terms of how can we get something out in terms of neurodiversity and and really get into that space. So obviously when we offered the opportunity to Sarah to get involved, she kind of bit her hand off, and she will work very closely with B moving forward, I'm sure. Second picture is our emerging leaders as well. What we want to do as well is we want to feed this back into our emerging leaders community. I think CIOB have got something similar, although I think the guys call it something different. But again, if we can help these guys at the start of their journeys as well, it's only going to serve the industry better. So I do have a tendency to harp on. I'm not going to say any more. That gives you a brief overview of where we are, and I will now hand over. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris. It's great. Really appreciate the context there. And yeah, we're two very similar institutions with similar people, similar skills. And I think construction, life sciences sector, pharmaceutical sector for the built environment, you can't really get higher requirements for quality and safety and, engineering skills, really. So we're at the pinnacle of bringing the two institutes together, really. So I think this diversity and underrepresented talent series we're doing now will only help. It's symbiotic. We'll work together or independently, because we need the same sort of diverse and amazing talent, because that's how you change and evolve as an industry. So thanks for that context. Next few slides, I'm going to go through them quickly because Sunaina's our guest speaker and I don't want to steal her thunder. But basically, we all know that there's a huge labour shortage across the globe in the construction, built engineering and life sciences sector. Yeah, that talent pool is obviously then getting diluted. So what we want to do as an institute and partnering organisations is bring and attract more talents. Yeah, and by doing that, we need to go into diverse backgrounds and different sectors to bring people into the CIOB and ISPE. Next slide, please. Again, a bit closer to home, 250,000 people, construction workers are needed, professionals by 2027. We're a main impact to GDP. We need the right people. When you're looking into sort of a metric, so, very, very poor representation from women, very, very low representation on site. Black, Asian and other ethnic minorities are not well represented, and also disability. Now, that could be disability of body, disability of mind. Now, that's where we want to harness and leverage skills and make our industries more attractive to people who may relate to any of them. Okay, so that's where we want to bring this diversity awareness in. Now, there's been some reports that I've read and some people I've engaged with, and what struck me is 1 in 4 construction workers consider themselves to be neurodivergent. So that's 1 in 4 of us, 25%. Now, the skills of neurodivergent people are amazing, and I think in the science, STEM sector, pharma sector, construction, it's probably more prevalent than that. So again, I want to raise your awareness and our organisation's awareness of where we want to drill into getting that talent identified and given the right environment to grow. Next slide. I'm not going to labour this, but basically the findings show that neurodivergent people love working in construction, science and pharmaceutical sectors. Yeah, so it actually attracts people. Then people like the challenges and the value and the lovely, shiny, amazing things that we all do and build. And that's part of the neurodivergent, non-neurotypical mindset. So again, we don't scare people off, we attract people. So let's create the environment to sustain that talent and bring more people from them diverse backgrounds into our sectors. So what that's sorry,
this as well.
Sorry, I'll move on and we'll take some questions at the end if that's all right, conscious of time. So basically there's 5 sessions. This is the first one where Sunaina from the Human Difference is going to give us an introduction into neurodiversity, and then we're going to really drill down into some of them neurodivergencies such as ADHD, autism and dyslexia, and how the skills that come associated with them conditions can benefit us all. Yeah, and then we've got a bit of a segue at the end looking at ex-forces personnel, because we also see the benefits of and the similarities of that network, if you like. So the final one of this session is a bit different to the first 4, but it's about ex-forces. So hope there's enough to whet people's appetites to listen to this and then to following sessions. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to shut up now and hand over to Sunaina from the Human Difference. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to be here. I'm so pleased to be able to speak to the topic of neurodiversity to you all. Thank you to the CIOB and the ISPE for this collaboration, for inviting myself and welcoming in the Human Difference to this series. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to walk you through what you can expect from the next, I think, about 30 minutes. I will take you through a very high level introduction of diversity, equity and inclusion. There's language there that I think is really, really important to ground yourself in as you delve into this topic. I'll then explain more about neurodiversity, about language, about types of neurodivergences that people might experience, and then we'll talk about the action, activating inclusion. How can we individually and collectively make a difference? And hopefully there'll be time for Q&A at the end of that. So let me introduce myself first of all. My name is Sunaina. This is how you pronounce my name. And there is also a QR code there if you would like to get in touch about anything that I share with you today. These slides are going to look very, very different for you. I'll explain why shortly. They may not be used to the typical setup that you're accustomed to, but there's a reason for that. So I've been a diversity, equity and inclusion and also wellbeing strategist for about 15 years now. Over 8 years of that time was served at PwC. So I have a breadth and depth of experience and exposure to different industries, different clients, and of course, different geographies. I am truly a global citizen. I have lived and worked in all geographies, gained a lot of insight that helps me be able to bring the expertise and knowledge to you. I'm also a mental health advocate. I have been a mental health first aider for over 8 years. I have supported organizations and their people in many different respects. So internally to help them through challenges with culture and and also externally, looking at geopolitical crises, social injustices, and also the COVID response. So I've done a lot of work through many layers of organisations in regards to mental health support. I'm neurospicy. That's my term. It's not a technical term. It's not a formal term, but it is a term that some individuals like to use. Thank you. By the way, please keep going with the emojis because it can be very lonely out here on the virtual stage. So I really appreciate seeing that support from you. Thank you. So neurospicy, what does that mean to me? This is an interesting one. I actually have HSP. I'm a highly sensitive person. I didn't realize that until a lot later. So I am, I would say, discovering this over the last 10 years. I am very sensitive to my environment. I am very sensitive to the emotions, not so much my own, but of others. So I am a deep empath. Use intuition a lot to guide me through my work. That's my secret power skill. Some people think it's a little bit witchy, but I'm fine with that. But we get great results because it helps me understand people. And of course, that is the priority of my work that I deliver. Happy to answer any questions about that later, but it's an interesting one. However, being so sensitive to my environments, even to building, I experienced something called sick building syndrome. So the older type of office buildings especially make me very, very unwell, and I probably can't be exposed to the lighting, the environment, and the materials used in their construct for probably more than 4 hours. I've had the benefit of working in well-certified buildings, which make such a difference to my health. As a result of all that, I have actually experienced severe burnout. Probably prolonged exhaustion and overstimulation for about 3 years, not taking the best care of myself and putting everything into my work, as empaths do. I burnt out 3 years ago, a complete factory reset. I lost my speech and my hearing, and I'm year 3 into recovery. And I tell you all this to help validate why I do the work that I do and why I created the Human Difference. And also to help validate why we're having this conversation today is that I truly understand. I understand from the most toughest environments to being able to help individuals and organizations do better and be better. Chris actually also pointed out a very important community here that we also need to think about, the parents and carers of individuals who are from the neurodiversity community, not just us as employees, not just managers, not just leaders. We all have a role to play, and we're probably not very far away from being an ally to somebody in some regard. So the Human Difference was set up to bring that humanity into the workplace. Our strategies are very human-centric. We transform cultures because the diversity, the hiring isn't always the challenge that you think it is. Building that inclusive culture so everyone feels seen, heard, valued, and safe is a priority. And we also develop confident leaders who will help nurture and catalyze these inclusive teams, cultures, and behaviors. So if we go to the next slide. Thank you. B, by the way, is helping me in the background here, and I really appreciate you. Thank you. These are our session guidelines. So in the spirit of the Human Difference, they will be a very different design and setup to what you're used to. This is a community of learning, and I must insist that we have inclusion and safety for all. So please, if someone comments, do show them as much love as I'm clearly being shown through the emojis. Keep the conversation safe, healthy, respectful, and judgment-free. I'm sure you all will. And also, can we be mindful that no two experiences are the same? Diversity just by default obviously means that we all bring something very different, very rich, and very beautiful to this world. So what I may share with you may not resonate entirely or perfectly, but please take from it what you can. The slides have been designed intentionally to be accessible. What that means is that they are a very a comfortable color scheme. I prefer to work in dark mode. That may benefit people who are also neurotypical. I have high contrast elements, very simple fonts. You'll see as we go through, but the reason for the style of presentation is to ensure that these are inclusive and accessible for everybody. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Perfect. So diversity, equity, inclusion. There's some language around here that I really want to make you feel comfortable in. So diversity, as we understand it, is the difference of people, the wonderful difference that we bring together and celebrate within the workforce, within our communities and all around us. But the equity and inclusion bit can sometimes get a little bit grey for people. So let me explain that to you better. I love this illustration. It was created during the apartheid era in South Africa by an artist, and it just explains so easily what we're trying to do here through DE&I. So 3 children, they're trying to watch the match or the game, and the fence is an obstruction to their view. If you give them all the same support, you give them all equality, it doesn't help them get to a level playing field to be able to see the view. The tallest child can still see, they could see regardless. The middle child has a better view, but the shortest child still can't see. With equity, it's not favoritism, it's equity. If you give more support to the individual who might need it, and just a modicum of support, let's say to the middle child who just has 1 box, here now everybody can enjoy the game comfortably. So it's meeting people where they are and providing them the accommodation, support and infrastructure that they need to be able to have that level setting. Ideally, we want to get to inclusion where there is no fence, there is no barrier to access, and we all have a much healthier environment to thrive in. If we go to the next slide. By the way, you have my full attention. I have another screen here, so I have to go back and forth. Inclusion is really, really important. So we know that if people feel seen, heard and valued, if they can bring their best selves forward in all that they do, you have an increased level of focus, collaboration, creativity. Your teams will thrive. There will be healthy and positive relations, which ultimately means that people are more productive, they're more creative, they're more innovative. So they're solutioning better for the success of your business. Absenteeism or presenteeism are both reduced, and the cultural uplift benefits everybody. I will keep referring to the fact that what we do, what we talk about and how we approach this, a lot of solutioning benefits everybody. There's a term called universal design that you may be familiar with, and what that means is when you design for one, you design for all. So there is greater benefit than simply helping one community. We are helping the entire workforce in this case. And of course, there's higher job satisfaction and retention. However, of course, as with anything, the yin and the yang, there are negative impacts to not having an inclusive culture. A lot of people who are from the neurodiverse community will probably for the majority of their time have been masking. Masking means that they are covering who they really are. They're not bringing their most authentic selves forward, potentially because they perhaps don't feel safe to. The environment isn't conducive to supporting them. They're concerned about judgment. It could be a cultural impact that they have, but that is exhaustive. It's imagine for your entire day at work, on top of the workload, on top of everything that's going on at home and around you, you then can't be your true and authentic self, and you're always putting this filter in front of who you truly are. It's exhaustive to your mental health. It will lead to lost productivity. It will, of course, impact the team, and it will lead to higher employee turnover. Now, when we look at employee turnover, that translates into some pretty high numbers. I got this information from Oxford Economics and Unum. It's a report that's readily available online. And it shows you that for each employee earning in the range of £25,000, it will cost you £30,000 or thereabouts, and about 28 weeks of lost productivity to replace that person. If you're losing 3 people a year because your culture isn't supporting them in the way it needs to, you're looking at £100,000 of impact there, as well as the 28 plus weeks of lost productivity. And I'm sure nobody wants to be part of that crisis. If we go to the next slide, we'll start to look at understanding neurodiversity. Now, this is a topic that I think needs a lot of safety and comfort around. People are not always sure which language to use. There's a lot of hesitation and apprehension. Sometimes those who have not been diagnosed with their own neurodiversity may even be comfortable with understanding this topic or this community as much as they may need to, so as to be conducive to their own well-being. So let's take a look at the next slide and we'll start to unpack this. So there are many different definitions of neurodiversity. I like the one that has the most human-centric meaning to it. And this is from Harvard Health. People experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. There is no one right way or wrong way of thinking, learning, and behaving. So the unique ways that people's brains work is our neurodiversity. And it's from the British Medical Bulletin, 15 to 20% of the global population is estimated to be neurodivergent. And Lee also referenced some information, some data at the beginning about the insights into construction. Think about the number of people who might be in your organization, who may be neurodiverse, but perhaps haven't disclosed yet. Is your environment enabling them to come forward and seek the help and support that they need? Let's understand the types of neurodiversity. So if we look at ADHD, it's probably the most commonly spoken about in the workplace. And this is when individuals have difficulty maintaining attention, regulating their impulses, and managing hyperactivity. I have worked with a lot of people who have ADHD, and they are some of the most creative and innovative thinkers. They really are, and they think very quickly. Their solutioning is very effective, very fast-paced, and I think they work really, really well in fast-paced environments. They're very, very responsive. If we go to autism and try and understand what that is, I've taken this quote from Autism Speaks, again, a website that is easily accessible. So autism, or as it's also known, autism spectrum disorder, ASD, this refers to the broad range of skills, of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behavior, speech, and nonverbal communications. Something I want to point out here is something that quite potentially every person I have met from this community tells me. If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Please do not think that if you, in your journey, meet someone who is living with autism, that is the blueprint of everything that you need to know about the lived experience. It's not. So this is definitely, we'll get to that shortly, but it's definitely about getting to know the individual on a human to human level to truly understand what supports are needed for them. So dyslexia. So this is obviously one of the more common ones that we're familiar with, and it affects how people read and also their writing skills as well. It's very challenging to live with dyslexia. I'll show you why in a moment and what that looks like, but they have exceptional thinking. And I'm actually going to bring a true life story into here. So my brother lives with dyslexia. I don't know how he does it. When I share with you what's coming up in the next slide, you'll understand why, but he achieved a first in his, I think he was in the top 1% of the country in graduating from his degree, and no one understood how he could do it being dyslexic. He's just got a phenomenal mind, and honestly, I'm so proud of him when I share with you some of the learnings through this journey to show you just the power of what they can bring to the workplace. Dyspraxia is probably not as well understood as some of the others that we've just talked through, but that impacts motor skills. And so coordination, handwriting, physical activities, it makes it really, really difficult for the day-to-day in the working environment. However, individuals with dyspraxia excel in verbal communication. Again, phenomenal creative thinkers and very strategic problem solvers. You will have access to these slides. I know I'm swiftly moving through them, but I do want to make time for you for Q&A at the end. But the other thing I'd also like to point out in all of this, in the entire conversation of, I think, DEI, but specifically here neurodiversity, please be mindful of intersectionality. My experience as a woman of color, as a woman of my generation, culturally, some of the influences that I would have had growing up, being a parent, not being a parent, everything will be very, very, very different to another person who does not represent my diversity or my demographic background. I think when we're looking at individuals now who are what we call late diagnosis, they're understanding their neurodiversity very later on in life. It's usually because their children are being diagnosed, and then they're looking at their children, and then they're understanding, oh, well, hold on, that's how I've lived, and that's what I've always done, and I didn't challenge that. And then they're starting to go on their journey of discovery. So please understand that everyone's journey, as much as we can talk about these definitions, will look very, very different for who they are as an individual. Please, let's go to the next slide. Language matters. I said that earlier. So here, just to help you very, very simply, for those who are very new to this conversation, these are 3 terms that I hope bring you comfort, because everyone sort of stutters and stumbles, even myself. And I think it's just understanding the grassroots of the language. So neurodiverse refers to the group trait, not the individual. So you would say, and I've given you some definitions here, you would say we are a neurodiverse team. Neurodivergent is an individual trait. So I myself I'm neurodivergent, and neurotypical is the style of cognitive functioning that belongs to the majority population or the dominant society population. And an individual might say that I'm neurotypical. This information is from Recite, which is a phenomenal site that brings accessibility to digital solutions. So if you're interested, please do look them up, but these definitions come from them. Right. So this word, and when we talk about language, can be interpreted very, very differently. Again, if we take individuals and their own experiences, this can either be a phenomenal and powerful use of language, or it can be the complete opposite. And what I like is Greta Thunberg and her use of language here. So when she explains about her Asperger's, what she says in the last line I'll quote, given the right circumstances, being different is a superpower. So being diagnosed is not a superpower necessarily, because the diagnosis can take between 2 and 6 years. And how you take care of yourself and understand yourself, maybe as someone who is diagnosed later in life, or as someone who has probably never truly understood or fitted in, and then they're starting to unpack what life looks like to them. And people who've struggled for many, many, many years and now starting to realize. There are also a lot like myself who are not diagnosed. And a neurodiversity expert I know who's phenomenal always says, if you're not diagnosed, what difference will the diagnosis make to you and your lived experience? Me personally, I don't think anything would change if I got diagnosed. I understand who I am. I understand through learning and speaking to others why I function this way, and I put in solutions to help myself. But not everybody I know has the ability or capability to be able to do that, which is why, for me, superpower is not a word I tend to use. So what does it look like to build the right circumstances? And I think here is where the human difference really comes to light, and ground yourself in human-centric conversations. Don't overthink this. If you meet someone, if you're coaching someone, if you have someone in your team, have a very human conversation grounded in kindness, show your curiosity, and be respectful of anything that they share. Ask them how they would like you to describe their lived experience or them as an individual, if they want you to even describe them at all. Avoid using language such as inspirational or brave, because that's not how the lived experience feels for the individual. There's usually conflict between person before, i.e. disabled, sorry, a person with disabilities versus a disabled person. Again, I would say, don't go by the textbook definition of how to construct language. Ask the individual. And then focus on the requirements of the individual. Now, when you're having these exploration conversations, and especially if you're a manager, don't just listen to listen. Sometimes you need to listen and be prepared to act. Is there an accommodation that needs to be put in place? What does that look like? So that's why those conversations grounded in humanity and care are really important. This is something I grabbed. It's literally a screen grab, so feel free to also make use of it. And it's just a lovely visual that shows us what the values and the capabilities are that people from the neurodivergent community bring to the table, and how you might want to start thinking about how these play into some of the roles that you have in your organization. Right, we can go to the next one. Now, there is a caution here. I do want you to be very careful as we go to the next slide, which we won't just yet. So what I'm sharing with you is a simulation of what it looks like to live with dyslexia. Now, this can be uncomfortable on the eye, so please, it will last about 10 seconds. So please, if it doesn't look too comfortable for you, look away from the screen. I'll call you back when the screen has settled. But for those of you who want to take a look, this is how somebody with dyslexia would experience a standard website. B, could you go, please? Thank you. So if you take a look at this, you should now be seeing the movement of the characters, the letters. Nothing is still. This is constant movement. So this is what, if I refer back to my brother, exactly, thank you. This is what my brother would have experienced, yet still he achieved his degree in the top 1% in the country. I don't know how he did it, but this is something very powerful that I use to help people understand truly what it is. And imagine that you mask. Imagine that you're not telling anyone. So you're going to take longer to read your emails. You might struggle to read reports. This is why accessibility and accommodations are so, so important. B, the next one. Now I am swiftly moving through now because of time, but I want to share with you some of the most amazing and accomplished individuals through history, and all of them have various different neurodivergencies. See, even I stutter with language sometimes. It's really important to understand that this does not hold you back. You can be anything and anything you want to be. And as allies, you can enable people to absolutely excel. It's phenomenal. So I think, take a look at them. I'm not going to go into detail, but I think if you know who these folks are and maybe celebrate them yourselves, just look into what it is that they live with and how they manage that. B, can we go to the next one? Thank you. Just to give you a light touch of a case study, JP Morgan had a program. It's still a very live and active program that they started. I believe it was around 2015. It's called Autism at Work. And here's just a very high level overview of some of the benefits and the power and the impact that delivered to the organization. So currently, in a report late last year, I read that they had now 150 employees on the program over 8 countries, and it's very much focused on tech-based roles. They have competitive advantage in the market. The war on talent is real, so they have that. Also, as a business, they now have competitive advantage because of the solutioning capability of this population. They have strengthened their employer branding. That's really important, not just the neurodivergent community, but anybody, allies, parents, carers, looking to see what organizations are doing, absolutely does strengthen your brand. And of course, you're enriching the diversity within the population of your organization, which benefits everybody. Individuals on this program were 48% faster at completing their work, 92% more productive, and they had stronger attributes such as visual sharpness, attention to detail, and super ability to focus. There's a quote there as well, directly from their website, and one of the leaders who was involved in that work. So it's a huge success story, but it's not the only one. If we go to the next slide, we can see that here are some very, at the top, you've got very heavy tech focused industries, of course, and Lee did allude to that earlier, that science, well, it's the STEM, the science, technology, engineering and maths areas where people who are neurodivergent do excel. And here are some success stories quoted from the World Economic Forum. The one at the bottom in the purple band, this is actually VF Corporation. I've worked with them. So VF Corporation are a global leading fashion institute. They own about 13, 14 brands around the world. We're talking about the North Face, Timberland, Vans, Supreme. And by the way, do note the diversity of industries I'm bringing to you. But all the learnings can be blended into any organization in any industry. But what VF did is they actually invested in the autism community. And this program has been going for, I think, about 5 or 6 years now. They now have a team that is completely focused. They're dedicated to it. They invest in it. And they are not just thriving, they're absolutely excelling. They are used as case studies in many different organizations within the fashion industry. They did something simple, for example, when through the hiring process, they don't have interviews. They have job trials to see if the individual is comfortable as much as the organization tries to be inclusive. As a result of that, they have better retention rates, they have high performers, and they have perfect attendance. So they've provided the right environment to help people thrive, and they're getting the results, and their business is absolutely benefiting as a result of that. So how do we activate inclusion? Let's take a look at some of the actions that we can take on 3 different levels. B? Thank you. Now, DEI, inclusive cultures is not just your leaders' responsibilities. It's not just the DEI team. It's not just HR. It is everybody's responsibility. So I'm going to break it down at an individual, a manager and team level, and an organizational level. As individuals, once we start to have those very human-centric conversations and understand and educate ourselves, it is not for the community to take the responsibility of educating us. It is for us to educate ourselves. Even myself as neurospicy, there's a lot I don't know, and I do take the time and effort to educate myself. Learn the communication styles that people might be more comfortable with. So clear and direct can seem to come across as cold and potentially rude, but it's not. It's actually helpful to individuals who benefit from style. So start to maybe diversify your style in communicating. Multi-channel and multi-format is really, really important. So for example, if you have an event and it's virtual, we are also recording it. People can also come back to it later, absorb the information, and also perhaps receive the slide deck separately. So there are 3 different ways of communicating and absorbing information, and that's really, really helpful. Structured engagement, pre-meeting, fair warning of what's to come up in the meeting, what the agenda looks like, not the night before, at least a week before is helpful, so that any questions that need to be asked, any accommodations that need to be made can be addressed. During the meeting, obviously, if it's virtual, create an environment that's safe, whether people want cameras on or off. How are you communicating? Are captions enabled? Or are individuals able to activate the captions should they need it? And also after the meeting, follow up, recap, summarize. All of this is very, very helpful. And I think if we think about it, it's probably another benefit of universal design, in that we all will benefit from that. Awareness and allyship training is really, really important, but not just the training. You need to do the action afterwards. Don't just learn, but actually activate. For managers, I would ask you to really get behind flexible working, and flex means flex. I think too many people get quite rigid with flexible working arrangements. No. Flex needs to be flex. What is needed today may not be needed in 3 months' time. And that's working times, that's working location, and also deadlines. The deadlines need to be adjusted to help somebody to accommodate themselves, their health, their well-being, work, or even in parent carer capacities. What can we do to help individuals? Tailored and timely feedback, really, really important. But again, I think that goes for universal design as well does benefit, but it's really important so people can understand and in a timely fashion invest in their development and course correct where they need to. Very reasonable accommodations are not costly. Noise cancelling headphones being one of them. It's so easy to solution for individuals. Meaningful check-ins, not just a rigid check-in, not a check-in on a big call like this, but a meaningful one-to-one. Drop them, a chat, a DM, how's it going? Any updates on the conversation we had last week? What more can I do for you? Are the headphones working? Whatever the accommodation was, how's the flex time working? Is that setup still conducive to supporting your needs this week? And again, listen to take action. Social gatherings can be a very tricky one. Please be mindful. Try not to, if you have social gatherings, let them all be the copy paste same thing all the time. Think about the environment. Think about noise, think about the activity, think about the time. All of this really needs to be thought into to be wholly inclusive. And leadership development and coaching is really, really important. So we help leaders to be inclusive, and to help them catalyze the culture that we all want to experience. I think leaders get a very hard time because organizations tend to think everything's their fault, or certainly people do, teams do. But let's show them that leaders really just need that extra bit of nurturing and safe space to be able to understand the concepts and what they need to bring to the table a little bit better. As an organization, I think your policies, your procedures really need to be meaningful and well thought out across the entire employee life cycle. So that's from hiring, onboarding, right the way through to exit. All of that is really, really important. Office space, that one obviously from lived experience, but dedicated quiet rooms for people who need that sensory relief, who really need to take time out, reset, because they'll come back stronger, harder, and much more engaged if they have that time to themselves. Lighting can be very, very uncomfortable for some, and if you can, and you have outdoor space, make it accessible, make use of it, because I think more often than not, we tend to just stick into the inside the building, but sometimes outside there can be some very beautiful and much needed natural space. If we go to the next slide. Thank you, Bea. To round up, I just want to share some resources with you. I would love you, as part of the lovely community that we've created here today, drop in any suggestions. If there are any resources that you've used, any websites, podcasts, recommendations, please do drop them in. If you are a parent or a carer if you are late diagnosis or both of those worlds, Matt Gupwell, Gupwell, has a phenomenal podcast. Well, he's got 3, but one of them is about late diagnosis, and it's well worth a listen. Employee assistance programs, EAP, or your employer healthcare cover, is really, really good. If you are seeking diagnosis, there can sometimes be a way to get around the 2 to 6 year waiting list if you have the appropriate components in your healthcare cover. Hidden disabilities, I love this. If you don't know them, Google them, but such a simple and effective way of knowing who your community is and being seen without having to over-explain. And of course, we're here as a partner, The Human Difference. The QR code is there again. Feel free to reach out, feel free to connect if you have questions that you may not want to ask today, if you have curiosities, if you want a discovery call. All that is possible. I would love to hear from you. That said, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to the CIOB and the ISPE once again for having me. And I do wish you all well and comfort as you delve into this journey of neurodiversity inclusion. Lee, thank you.
Sunaina, thank you so much. I thank you and Human Difference. I think you've really set the bar very high now. We've got 4 more of these amazing webinars coming up over the next couple of months, and yeah, I know some of the presenters are on the call, and we'll be taking notes, because that was really informative and very much appreciated. I am conscious of time, and we'll take some learnings into the next session, but there's a QR code there for CIOB support. Again, the environment that people work in sometimes not conducive for the neurospices of us. So again, but we have got networks and support there if needed. But I think what we'd like to take away that people feel empowered and inclusive, and the awareness has definitely been increased by your presentation today. Next slide, please. Again, there's a link there to our CIOB EDI charter. You know, there's been a lot of signatories and organisations signing up to that, but Chris and the ISPE, I'm sure, will also agree that, you know, as operating in the built environment, construction, life sciences, STEM place, STEM environment, people in the neurodiverse networks will really, you know, prosper and do well, given the right environment to grow and flourish. Okay, so that's it from the content perspective. And please, I hope you've enjoyed it, put some comments in the chat, feedback to us outside of it. You know, our emails are available. The next ones, we will drill down deeper into some of them subjects in a bit more detail. So we'll hear from people with ADHD, with autism, with dyslexia, and how that's actually helped them do really well in their lives and their careers in our environments. But similarly, there needs to be that appreciation that superpower, if you like, can come with some deficiencies and some challenges. So we just want to create awareness and create an environment for people to leverage the skills and with the right support. So that's thank you from me. Is there any questions or comments for the last 2 minutes?
I see one from
Karen. Yeah, Karen's had a hand up for quite a while. Are you there, Karen?
You're on mute.
I think Karen was doing a hands up rather than a high five. I think Karen's had a hand up through the session. So yeah. Chris, any closing comments from the ISPE perspective?
Sorry, Lee. You caught me mid-type. I was trying to type a message to Sunyana just to tell her how fantastic her presentation was and how grateful we are for your insights. So greatly appreciated your time today. Just closing comments from me, Lee. Just to let you guys know that, and for any of our ISP members on the call, you know, we very much see this at board level as an alliance partnership with CIOB. We want